Citizens of Earth, gird your loins and open your minds. You have now willfully submitted to the Party for Prosperity and Supervillainy! Ha 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 ha! Oh, that works so much better when I actually remember to hit the go live button. Funny how that works. I am known by many names, but today you may call me the Madhat Katt. If you must speak of me in the third person, perhaps to proclaim the wonders of our most deviant and devious party, you may use they, them, their, themselves. And now, my supervillainous associate, I'm going to point in the correct direction this time, Doc Zodiac.
And I am known as Doc Zodiac, mad cult leader, forward-looking visionary, and mixologist extraordinaire, here to show you light and truth, at least as I perceive it. If you must use pronouns, please feel free to use him, he, or my lord.
And hello to you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, go.
We are here to observe, to discuss, to listen, and occasionally make some bloody sense out of this mad world.
It's so mad that I jumped the gun on what my next section was going to be.
Happens to the best of us.
And the worst of us, because supervillainy. And hello to you, my dears. I hope you have had a pleasantly devious week. Thank you for once again joining us for our third official episode. We got started a little bit later than we anticipated, but we still started. We still did the thing. Doctor, I'm so proud of us.
Yes, we are actually 3 episodes into this. This could actually become a weekly thing.
Mostly
it gives us a perfectly good opportunity to gather, to be social, to have the occasional drink, and to blow off a little villainous steam.
Yes, indeedy. Yes, indeedy. Speaking of just the weekly thing, as has long been tradition since 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
Well, I was going to say, technically speaking, this is our 4th time because we had our, unaired pilot episode, and this is our 3rd official episode.
It's our 1-month anniversary. Oh, I feel so proud.
I know, right? I think we should celebrate by deciding whether or not we want to keep StreamYard for our next month of experimentation, or if we want to try whatever the name of the other one I was looking at for.
That might be a conversation for off mic, or if anybody actually has some
suggestions.
Has some suggestion for something that allows us to hit multiple platforms, please feel free to let us know, because we are still dipping our toes into the streaming pond, so to speak. And we would absolutely love to hear advice from people who have had a little bit more experience or might know something outside the realms of our own.
Yeah, the whole idea of doing this live, I think, has sort of been to just keep the in-person friendly atmosphere energy to it. And I haven't had the time because I'm still not totally away from work, but then taking the live feeds and condensing them down to a kind of highlights video that will be podcasty X. Han Pritchard says that our audio just started. I want to double check and make sure that something of the original bit was heard.
Any degree of luck?
I sure hope so. I don't want to have to go back and check on it. Even if it was, we'll get it in post. It's fine. This is fine.
When in doubt, remember, it's usually easier to fix it in pre-production, but if you have to fix it in post, there have been...
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, there is still the classic story that I use in video editing classes where I play the lineup scene from The Usual Suspects and point out that is assembled out of, I think it's somewhere between 55 and 60 blown takes. They never finished it.
Ooh, that's so many takes.
Yeah.
That's so many takes.
I would probably be losing my mind by about 40. I'll be perfectly honest.
I think we have an additional viewer that can let us in on the fact of whether or not our audio is actually broadcasting. Another one of our fellow villains, someone over from Us Three Blokes. If I had to guess, I would bet you a shiny new nickel that it is Starhawk. But, you know, that's just my villainous intuition at work there. What do I know? In any case, whether or not we actually got our intro, and if I have to fix it in post, doesn't matter. Let us continue on with tradition and read the party's manifesto. Rule, guideline, whatever you want to call it. Number 1. Whenever possible, supervillains must treat others with kindness, civility, and respect. One never knows who they are addressing or what sort of day they've had.
2. Hate is hate and should be directed toward systems wicked and behaviors most foul, rather than toward individual persons and groups en masse.
3. Thoughtful deviation drives progress. Embrace your considerate deviation, or rather considerate deviance, and let it guide you.
Rule number 4. Your thoughts are your thoughts are your thoughts and can never be taken from you. Your words said aloud and your actions in the world have consequences. Choose your words and actions wisely.
Number 5. Now I'm just thinking back to the kids next door. Number 5.
Number 5.
One of the best ones. One of the best ones. The party will not shun the ignorant, but willful ignorance is a crime of the highest degree, and rehabilitation must either be scheduled or performed on the perpetrator's own time.
Let me see. 6. The party, much like Socrates, knows for certain that they know nothing for certain, and reserves the right to refine and amend its manifesto on ongoing basis.
And just in case we didn't grab this in our before going live time, would you care to share the proposed 7th, which I feel is kind of gets, is covered under number 1, but just for a proposal, I don't mind it being brought to the table. What would number 7 be?
Number 7 is this. If you should be in a relationship with someone, being abusive to them is basically having someone who knows where you sleep and who sleeps alongside of you and has the opportunity to cut your throat. With that in mind, behaving in an abusive manner is simply counterproductive. There's a whole lot of reasons to not behave in an abusive manner towards your significant other. I'm just pointing out the most practical one.
And this was drawn up in light of what recent event?
The idea that Evan Rachel Wood came out and named her abuser, the one that she had spoken about, in front of Congress. And it turned out to be, not a particular surprise, but Marilyn Manson. In light of some of the things that Manson has said that he has done for funsies in the past with various members of his own fandom, I should say that I'm not particularly surprised. But at the same time, the idea that some people are trying to, for lack of any other way of putting it, excuse his behavior because of the fact that there was a DS relationship involved, tells me that they don't understand how a DS relationship works.
Well, and I think I don't know that I've said it every episode so far, but just in case, I'll say it again. Stan no one.
Yes.
Don't stan anyone. Like, honestly, not even people you know personally, but definitely not public figures. Do not stand public figures because you don't know the inner workings of their mind. You don't know their personal lives. And sometimes people can just have bad days. And other times people grow accustomed to behaving in destructive and abusive fashions and having people just kind of let it slide because of who they are as a public figure. And I know nothing about this situation. I have no particular opinion on it because I have no idea about the situation. But yes, in general, most people do not understand the general what am I trying to say here? Most people don't understand the nature of dominant submissive relationships. And that's not to say that it could never be abusive, because it absolutely can. Just by nature of there being 2 or more people in a room, there is the potential for abuse. Like, honestly, even if you're alone, and I'm not making a masturbation joke here, there is the potential to abuse yourself. If people are involved, abuse is possible. That's what I'm trying to say.
Even if, well, okay, again, the masturbation joke writes itself, but I've never quite viewed masturbation as self-abuse, mostly a manner of making sure that I'm walking into whatever day that I'm dealing with without the urge to destroy everything around me. But I do feel that there has been, I was just listening to one of my favorite podcasts. If you're interested in gothic music or dark music or industrial music, check out a podcast called We Have a Technical. I find the best bands ever as a result of this. I might pimp them every other episode simply because I enjoy their podcast that much. But they talked about a lot of the reactions to the Marilyn Manson situation. And a lot of it is victim blaming or sitting around and saying that it's, kind of a retroactive, deciding to change your mind about consent situation. And I'm sitting there thinking, no, with the way that it was described, I think that there is an element there of psychological and social manipulation, even before we get into elements of physical or sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're using those elements as something to keep somebody close to you, using that psychological manipulation. And also, I feel like I am throwing a stone at my own glass house because I'm in a relationship with somebody who is considerably younger than me. But the difference is, to me at least, if you're dealing with someone younger than you, you are not allowed to use your, for lack of any way of putting it, bigger understanding of emotional maturity to control them or manipulate them.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is one of the ultimate cheap shots in any relationship.
As someone who is in a relationship with someone who is 12 years older than me, I appreciate that mindset.
Yeah.
And I don't know, if anything, I feel like there is not just the responsibility to not use your greater understanding of emotional maturity against someone else, but to kind of impart that wisdom upon them. Like, not in, I'm so much smarter than you and I will share things with you, because, chronological age doesn't necessarily denote emotional maturity. Not for everyone, but even just by existing in the world for more years than another person has, some things that they don't, and you've experienced some things that they don't. And yeah, don't use it against people.
Yeah, it's a very touchy situation in that particular sense. One of the things, there was a quote and or comment somebody made, and I wish I could reference it. I'll look it up and see if I can put it in the show notes. But there is something about a reference point that was made in French romantic culture regarding relationships that have an age difference involved. And one of the things they said is that very much a part of French culture is that that's somewhat accepted, but only with the caveat of the person who is the younger or the junior member of that particular relationship should emerge better and stronger as a result of that. And not in the sense of surviving abuse, but more about growing with someone else. Yeah.
Right.
I am also entirely grateful that I am in a relationship with someone who is younger than me, that if I tried to emotionally or physically abuse them, would probably take me to the goddamn cleaners.
I think you're probably right on that.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty accurate assessment. I've only met this person once or twice.
Yeah.
But that is the vibe I pick up.
I think that growing up, and how we always say that we try very hard not to grow up and involve ourselves with people who are very much like the opposite gender parents of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up around a group of women who take exactly zero shit, are very aware of who they are and very aware of their circumstances. And I have come to appreciate that now as an adult, because it saves me an awful lot of time and trouble in dealing with circumstances or stumbling across, shall we say, hidden tripwires in relationships. I love the idea that in any relationship, if I step and hit somebody's little tripwire or pressure point, turn around and fucking tell me. Because if not, I really won't learn. I do apologize in advance, but that is the most, honest moment I can make in regards to that.
Well, that's very mature of you. Very emotionally mature.
Famous last words. Yes. But yeah, the Marilyn Manson situation, and to me, I think that it's something that we need to be somewhat more cognizant and aware of. We talk an awful lot about, and realistically we should, physical and sexual abuse, but something that we're becoming more and more aware of over time is the use of emotional and or social abuse on someone.
Yeah.
And I really do have to give Evan Rachel Wood an awful lot of credit for standing up and saying, hey, I was manipulated on a very, very basic level and was kept in a relationship that I should have left a long, long time prior. And I think that that's a warning point that people should be aware that if somebody's sitting around using threats of self-harm, because that is something that can drive a relationship and can keep somebody in a relationship simply because you don't want to see someone harming themselves. But
Yeah.
those threats of self-harm are basically a means and form of control. And there was a host of other things that she described in there that I really think that a lot of people should sit down and spend some time getting to know, because those are all red flags if you think that your relationship is functioning and everything else, but you see some of these, you might want to consider what your red flags are.
Mm-hmm. This is completely non-serious compared to everything you just said, but now I'm remembering the card game. I think it's called Red Flags.
I have to play this.
I'll have to look it up if I can remember anything about it other than like the name and the general concept. I will elaborate a little bit later on. What I would like to do as soon as I get my mouse transferred over to the correct device, I'm switching between, because I'm streaming from my phone and I've got a little bit of music playing in the background on my laptop, and I've got my show notes up on my laptop. Fine, I'll use the touchscreen. Jeez. But I've been switching my mouse between on my phone and on my laptop. It's kind of handy. All right, so what I to give it, not lighten it up, but to take a breath for a moment from the ouchiness of the world. I'd like us to start off with a nice thing that makes us happy right now. Mine is a thing that has absolutely nothing to do with the world around me or current events. It is a completely inside my own bubble thing. My little nook here has been completely rearranged. I have all of my consoles and my PC and my laptop and my camera set up here and the giant TV that I'm using as a monitor for said PC while I wait until I have a little bit of spare cash for an actual monitor. Everything. Oh, and my I know I already did this in the scheduled before going live moment, but I'm going to do it again. My little table
nice.
here with my split wireless keyboard that is extremely ergonomic and beautiful. This is actually, I think, the point where I realized we hadn't gone live yet, because I was looking at my mouse and looking at it in the camera and going, oh, what's that button over in the corner that says scheduled and not, oh, no.
Well, shit.
But yes, now I have everything all set up, and as soon as probably the end of the month, if not sooner, because as we will get into a little bit in just a little bit here, I don't know how much longer I'm gonna make it. Being at work during the week when customers are around, but at least for the moment, I'm still working like kind of overtime a little bit in order to make sure that everyone is like semi-settled for the times ahead where I will not be there during the week. But yes, everything is all set up. Super happy. Yay. Haha.
Yay.
And you have kind of a similar nice thing.
Yes, I have been spending the last few weeks, or last few days, I should say, actually starting the process of cleaning out the living area that I'm in. After the holidays, I got a little bit lazy and I was looking around going, wow, look at all of these boxes that are taking up space that I am tripping over that
You should
are
just leave them there.
yeah, that are probably just fire hazards waiting to happen. And so I'm slowly clearing that particular area out, clearing out the layer a little bit so that way I can add yet more gear. Because as a villain and
You
as a
don't have enough.
yeah, as a villain and as a musician, there is a very basic rule of life that states that there is nothing wrong with either your ability to play or your ability to be a villain that can't be cured with more gear. So yeah, being able to actually see my living room has been really entertaining, and I'm now working on finding bits and pieces of my kitchen. My desk, on the other hand, is always has been since the first time I had a desk until now, a lost cause. It is pretty much the area where you toss a grenade and let it redecorate the desk for you, and that works out. I
That's
know
one way of doing it.
I know where most everything is, and by most everything I mean medications and pens and things like that. There are probably bills that I forgot to pay 3 months ago sitting on here, but still, aside from that.
This doesn't necessarily relate to. I didn't quite get it finished this morning, but my desk down in the office, which my PC will eventually probably go over to, I cleaned about half of it. It's basically just been accumulating kind of like nonsense from everywhere. It's been just like the catch-all drop-off place, where like uh for most people, like the dining room table is that place for them. For me, it's been my office desk, and there are things in there from my backpack when I emptied it out after the last time I was in San Francisco. I have, which has just been like painful to look at because I'm like, oh no, a receipt from Wicked Grounds. When
And
will
you
this ship be over? I want to go back. Oh,
I can empathize so hard with this. It is not even
mm,
funny.
oh dear. Well, we've had our nice things, so now I'm gonna move us on to the kind of not so nice stuff. And if you are amenable to it, Doctor,
Yes.
uh, I would like to relay a few little stories from work this week, leaving out as many of the super incriminating details as possible. Incriminating,
Uh,
like for me, but like
are we?
basically tales from the life of a retail worker, let's say.
I can empathize, and I want to point out that Tales from a Retail Worker is also basically for villains
Mm-hmm.
a situation where you sit there and go, I'm seeing where the potential hench pool comes from. These people clearly need other things and places to put their energy into, and
Mm-hmm.
this is a great place to start recruiting. Anyway, continue.
Well, and why is their soul so broken? Because they
Yes,
know they are capable of more. They know
and,
that they could affect change if someone would just give them a little bit of goddamn authority.
and and with that, we are here to help. Hench for us for a while, and we'll help you find your own personal villain.
Before I begin, I do have to break protocol, and I noticed in chat, Hannah said, Tales from a Retail Worker sounds like a bodice ripper for our modern times.
Oh God.
And first of all, I love that sentence because bodice ripper is an excellent word, but also like Tales from a Retail Worker sounds like a lot of things. It does sound like a trashy romance novel. It also sounds like potentially just a really goofy, tongue-in-cheek, but also super bloody and gross horror film.
Hang on, I gotta go find the script software. I'll be back in a minute.
One moment, one moment. So yes, tales from this particular retail worker. It's only part of my job, but unfortunately, with the way things have been over the last year, the face-to-face, person-to-person customer service aspect of my job has been a lot more prominent, and it's kind of like the majority of what I've been doing. And I don't care for that much, but we're making it work. We're making it work. We're making it work. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. So, obviously, since the onset of COVID last year, there was, first of all, not very consistent, or not even very, there was no consistent message from our federal government here in the US, and on local levels. We live in Nebraska. Our governor is some words that I am not going to say aloud, just in case there are children watching. And also, not that I already haven't said horrible things that children shouldn't hear.
Here, allow me, as your associate villain, to point out that I will use those words, and the lack of any sort of creative and any sort of functional direction led us to what we now can refer to as a goat fuck. That is the only explanation. That sort of circumstance where you're sitting there thinking, I'm going to bed with a particularly hot fill in the blank of whatever it is that, or whoever it is that you view as somebody sexually appealing. But yet there you are, balls deep in a goat. You don't know how it happened, but that's how it worked out.
You probably tripped on a rake or something.
Yeah, that sort of thing happens. So anyway, continue, but I had to define it a little bit more. My apologies.
Yes. So basically, the situation has been that nothing has been consistent. And because nothing has been consistent, there has been no consistent message from, well, it eventually here in, what are we, District 2? Our little blue bubble here, as they like to call it. Eventually, there was a mask mandate instituted. I want to say in August, I think like on August 11th, they officially instituted a mandate because this kind of like lackadaisical, we'll wait and see, semi-hopefulness, like I don't even really know what to call it. Everything, the lack of wanting to put forward any kind of direct measures to kind of get the local status of the pandemic down to like absolute minimum as much as possible. It mostly just looked to me like more folks on the more conservative side of things didn't want to ruffle anyone's feathers, because if we potentially, fuck it. I'm just gonna like be completely politically incorrect. We're gonna piss off the angry white people, and then who knows what will happen. We can't ruffle their feathers, goodness no. And that's incredibly frustrating, because you're perfectly willing to ruffle all kinds of other feathers, and yet in this particular instance, when we are dealing with a disease where obviously in Nebraska we did not get hit nearly as bad as like coastal cities or larger places, like Atlanta or a couple of cities down in Texas. We aren't a super dense population. That being said, a lot of these surrounding towns who have folks who work in meat factories, those particular places did get hit very hard. And it kept happening again and again.
Let me break in as a person who is a supervillain who also has a day job working at a hospital. Mm-hmm. There were periods of time where I know that when we were sitting around reporting what was going on with COVID, back and forth, because every day we would get briefings in terms of what hospital has what. UNMC and Methodist Main Campus were taking in cases from Sioux City, South Dakota, and Iowa, and also from Kearney, Nebraska. Um, those areas got hit remarkably hard, and it's the rather unfortunate side effect of how it is that the cultures in those areas work. Anyway, continue. I had to point that out just because.
Yeah. No. Well, and we was that overflow that you guys were taking in?
Yeah, because Sioux City, South Dakota, and Sioux City, Iowa, along with places like Kearney and Grand Island, did not have the number of ICU beds necessary to handle all the cases that they had. So long story short, they had to move them out to Iowa. There were even some cases that I heard on the far western side of the state that were being moved to Denver, Colorado.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was patently absurd in terms of the sheer logistics of handling a situation.
Yeah. And again, like it could have been so much worse in so many ways, but it was just frustrating on a daily basis to see so much disagreement about whether or not this was even a problem, and that just the utter dissonance of it. There were multiple people right from the beginning who would come in, see me wearing a mask, and they would have to go on a 3 or 4 minute thing about, well, we're not meant to be wearing things like this. God gave us lungs for a reason. Like, you need to go out and get in the sun. And it's just like, I don't even know what you're talking about anymore. It's like, if you didn't have an immune system that could handle things, well, we wouldn't have nothing to do with anything. Nothing to do with anything. And of course, I would never ever engage in this sort of thing in my workplace. Like, this is not the time or the place for this. And this actually, I don't know if any of you have noticed from the thumbnail what I have titled today's episode. The fuck is wrong with people? I do not understand. And this happens again and again and again. And this past week, it happened enough times that it's like all that's on my mind, and just ever confirming that my decision to go down from full time to like 10 hours a week on the day where there are no customers, that's what has inspired this emboldening of just kind of unhinged behavior towards total strangers in public. And before anyone says anything, but what about the internet and all the Tumblr kids getting dogpiling on the people for using the wrong pronouns? Mob mentality, cult speak. I'm actually in agreement with you there. Person who I have turned into a characteristic Muppet. There's lots of, I'm turning all kinds of things Muppety today. I think social media has just been like kind of a weird thing that we weren't totally ready to handle as humans. But regardless of whether or not we were, even before social media was the thing, I still saw people just completely go ballistic on retail workers, on people who work in restaurants, on people who work in hospitals. Now, hospitals, I can almost understand a little bit more why people would suddenly kind of snap. Because that, generally speaking, if you're in a hospital, you're in a more tense situation. You've got someone in there that you need to get in and see because they're a family member and they're dying. And I don't care about your fucking rules. I've got to get in there now. So that, I understand. But in a retail situation, I don't. What possesses a person? How are you raised? How do you think? What else is going on in your life that you think that it's okay to just like completely blow up at a person and wave your hands in their face and point your fingers in their face? This is what's been going on during my week, by the way. Like, you being this close to me that you can like wave your finger in my face in not a pandemic is already not great. And I did go through that 2 years ago. I basically just had to go like to my associate. So I'm gonna switch with you because I clearly can be of no help here. Please take over. Steps 2 feet away, continues to just totally ignore this person and somehow provide amazing customer service to everyone else. They think I'm fine. What's your deal? But in a pandemic, getting all up in my face and telling me about how this is a hoax, how they're fighting it out at City Hall right now, about whether or not to repeal the mask mandate or not, and me being without a mask. This right here is free speech. This is free speech, honey. Don't fucking call me honey. You don't fucking know Christ, me. Yeah. Do not call me. It was an older woman. I was like, don't fucking call me honey. You don't know me. But just completely unhinged, ballistic. I would never, ever, ever in my life treat someone I didn't know that way, or someone I did know for that matter. The only way I would get to that level is if people are being extremely emotionally abusive to someone who is in my immediate sphere, and that it's happening like right now. I'm a pretty like, you know, all over the place, spur of the moment, spontaneous sort of person. But I am really, I recognize that I'm in much more measured control of my anger, both in private and in public. But just, I don't know if you can tell. It's just like error. It does not compute. How do you think that this is at all appropriate? Who told you that this was okay?
But I think that there is something about the idea
of... Donald said it was okay.
Yeah. I think there is something about the idea that because I have my own version of this at where I work, but there is something where you become an object. You become the person who, rather than being a living human being, you become a person who, you become an object that is the obstacle between me and what I want. And a lot of the people who we deal with on a day-to-day have been through their 8 hours at whatever unfortunate job that they have to work. And they are now basically trying to get whatever else they need done in the day. And if they view you as an obstacle in their day, you cease to be, you know, the Madhat Katt. You are now just simply an object that I can sit there and dump 8 hours of the rest of the shit that happened to me today on them. My job at a hospital is to find the gear necessary for people to do their jobs. Let me tell you just how much it sucks when you can't deliver. My other favorite moment is when you sit there and go, hi, we found some PPE for you. And they're like, well, we prefer the yellow particular ones. Yes, I know what you prefer. And if I could get it for you, I would. But I can't, so you have to use this. Deal with it.
I'm sorry, this is what we have. I need to go.
Like, seriously, there is a moment when I have, shall we say, it is actually my way of rewarding departments for good behavior. I think everybody in the hospital, in any hospital, has done this. Has a few items in the back of the room that sits there and goes, you treated me nicely, so therefore you get this. On the other hand, if you sat there and bitched at me for an hour and a half and treated me rather horribly all the way through this process, you get fuck all, deal with it. No, it's not, you never deprive anybody because there are patient outcomes to deal with, but
right.
There is an element of knowing who has what particular piece of material and what they prefer, and you either help them or hinder them as you see fit. I won't say that
very small acts of vigilante justice.
Yes. Because there are people. There is a department at work that one of the people there treated me rather horribly. And long story short, I missed out on a job opportunity that would have been perfect for me because of the way that they treated me. And now they get what they need. Sometimes they may not get what they want. Because I don't feel an obligation to help them deal with their day to days if they went out of their way to make my life fucking miserable.
Yeah.
And I think that something that people forget about retail workers, and also as much as retail workers get it, or as much as supply people get it, food service people get it so much worse.
Oh, Lord.
If you've ever seen the opening scene of a film called Waiting, I highly recommend this as an example of villainous revenge. But
Basically, yeah.
you have to be aware that people in service organizations have the opportunity to help you or hinder you or really make your life fucking miserable. And it's kind of like the classic example of Alan Wigg, a friend of mine, pointed out that being in this circumstance is the equivalent of topping from the bottom. And if you
Look,
know how
retail
to
workers are basically power bottoms. The sooner
yes,
that the wider realm of society realizes this, the better off you'll all be.
yeah. So I have a lot of empathy for everybody who's involved in that particular situation. And being in a circumstance where you understand the fact that everybody's a little bit afraid of dealing with the disease and dealing with the capacity to protect yourself from it, you give them what they need.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, sometimes you can't give them what they want. And sometimes you sit there and go, okay, this department treated me nicely. They get what they want. You get what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an awful lot of that capacity in retail work and food work and all sorts of other areas. So,
Well, and I would say, like, it's not something that's, universally meted out. But there are instances, I think, for most people in like person to person service type work, there are instances where you pushed me just a little bit too far today,
yeah,
and I'm feeling a little bit spiteful. So, you know what? You are the one person that I like. I do my job bare minimum. You get what you need. Um, I'm going to make it just as uncomfortable as possible for me. You can wait just as long as I can make you wait without it actually like going into the realm of really being a problem.
yeah. I never want to be in a circumstance where my reaction influences a patient outcome or actually puts somebody
Right, right.
at a legitimate level of risk. That is an entirely different game that I would never play.
Yeah.
But I do
Well,
think on the other, but
go ahead.
the amount that I have in terms of me busting my ass on your behalf
Mm-hmm.
really does depend upon how well you treat me. You don't have to kiss my ass, but a please and thank you really goes a long fucking way.
Yeah, please don't kick my ass and I won't ask you to kiss mine. uh the See, one of our rules actually makes me think about this. You don't know what kind of day people have had,
Oh yeah.
and I totally understand that, and I understand why. Like, I've taken some like online courses on LinkedIn for like customer service situations, and all of them that are about dealing with unruly or abusive customers. Like, to start with, like, most of the time people are just having a bad day, and part of your role, as the customer service representative, is to just let them vent a little bit, because usually that will calm them down. They will feel seen, they will feel heard, and we can move along. um, I want to push back against that a little bit, because I think, um, in the United States specifically, I think we treat anyone who works any kind of hourly person to person job, we treat them like shit, like
Yeah.
just absolutely terrible. It doesn't matter whether or not you tip them, whether or not you tip them poorly or well, but just the general treatment of them overall is just absolutely insane. And like again, the wider realm of society needs to realize like most of these services and conveniences that we have, um normally we wouldn't have them. We have them because we have, progressed enough in our industrial society and our technological society that we have so many less things to worry about. Like you're basically getting to LARP a rich person's life
Oh,
from the 18th century with all of the things that you're going to restaurants. Yeah, no, that didn't exist until after they cut off the heads of monarchs in France. And like just what you're mad about, this is a completely disproportionate reaction for you to ruin someone's day over it. Because I think for the most part, we try to empathize with how people are. I do want to go back to what you said about retail workers basically being turned into objects, at least in the moment that people are trying to get the thing that they want and they're being told that they can't have it, or at least not have it exactly the way that they want it. So for the longest while, we did not have any kind of like official signage. I made up a bunch of my own signage because that's the sort of person I am. I will use my own ink and paper and time and effort to design appropriate signage to just give everyone a physical reminder, because everybody fucking forgets their mask in their car sometimes. Everyone forgets, like they have it in their hand and they forget to put it over their face before they walk in the door. I did it the other day. I walked out, completely forgot I didn't have it on because I was drinking coffee for a second, and then I kind of like swooped back. I walked out and oh no, and walked back, straight back to my station to put it on. But the signs that say, do what you can to help stop the spread, maintain, at least a 6 foot distance from people outside your own home. And most places will have signs that say, maintain your distance from customers and our associates. And I made a sign that said something to that effect. And I have noticed over the last year that the vast majority of people will actually stay away from other customers. They will maintain that 6 foot distance, not even just like a respectable, general public space bubble like we might think of it in the US, but like at least 6 feet. But then they will come straight up to the counter, lean, talk in my face, pull away their mask to tell me all kinds of things, and just like if I set things to keep them from leaning on the counter, they'll move them with their elbows or like find whatever little section that they can possibly lean on. I understand that we're all desperate for a sense of normalcy, and like just being able to go to a retail counter and say, hey, I'm here to pick up a thing, I'm here to get this, do you have any recommendations for this kind of thing, what products can you offer me, and leaning all over a retail service counter is one of those things that you crave with the normalcy. But at the same time, all I can think of is, you don't see us as people, do you? We're just these. Are we robots? Are we robots to you? I wish that you could give me a fraction of the consideration that I am giving you. Because to be perfectly honest, I am not paid enough to treat you as nicely as I do. I'm doing it because that's the sort of person that I am. I genuinely want to help you. I genuinely want to help you out. I want you to get what you need, and I want you to leave happy. But the inconsiderateness of it all just blows my mind on a daily basis, and it makes me feel fucking crazy.
I think that there is a rather unfortunate social element that we deal with, in that there is something in our society, because I was talking about this with somebody else yesterday. We create a social strata. And if I view you as being beneath me in the social strata, then I can do basically whatever I want to you in terms of a social or emotional abuse, because you're beneath me. That's the way that it works. Being the person who has done everything from bartending to bouncing at strip clubs to a whole bunch of other things, I have been on the wrong end of an awful lot of being on the bottom end of social strata. And so end result is it has made me very, very aware of how it is that I treat the people that we view as being somewhat beneath us. So, I don't view as anyone as being beneath me. If you're a delivery person or a bartender or somebody who's waiting on me, hey, you're getting at the very least a 20% tip and probably more, because I have stood in your fucking shoes.
Yeah.
I am a firm believer in the idea that everybody, no matter where you grew up in, should work one shit service job to understand what it's like to be on the wrong end of that level of abuse.
Yeah. And absolute requirement. In between your 13th and 14th year of life, you get to go work just at a counter or like as a host at a restaurant, and then you may move on to high school.
Yeah. At a certain point, I think that we were talking earlier about growth and emotional maturity. And sometimes your growth and emotional maturity, it comes from, the obvious elements of how it is that people deal with you or how you deal with other people. But sometimes you have to be aware of what it's like to be on the bottom end of the food chain. And that right there will help you to improve your emotional maturity real fucking quick. Because I don't know, I always break it up. I start with the idea that there are two kinds of people. Those who view the world as two kinds of people and those who know better.
Well, that's a brilliant way of putting it. Please put that on a t-shirt.
Okay, I'll totally work with that.
I see. I love that. Like as soon as you started saying that there are two kinds of people, and I'm like, no, they're not.
No, they're not. Yeah.
I understand our nature is to say, let's
compare either or.
Yes, either or. Must it always be either yes or shoot? No, I'm trying to quote Into the Woods and I'm failing miserably. Must it always be either less or more? Either nope, I'm failing. I'm just going to cut it out. Never mind. Continue, Dave.
Yeah, but
it's because you're standing there.
There's a very bipolar nature to how it is that we treat interactions, especially in America. But there is a element of having to understand that there are a whole bunch of people who have never been in that circumstance of being on the wrong end of it, and these are the ones who drive me totally insane, the people who have been on the wrong end of that and are now looking forward to the opportunity to do it to somebody else. And those are the people that I prefer not to fucking deal with ever. If I've been on the wrong end of something, or I've been on a terrible, if I've been bullied or treated horribly in a particular way, chances are real fucking slim I will ever do that to you, because I know what that feels like. And that missing of that quality of empathy is something that you see in an awful lot of people who deal with retail workers on a day-to-day.
Swear that I was listening to everything you just said. I've just got someone singing Into the Woods over me, mocking me that I could not remember the line.
Look,
mocking me.
You stuck the earworm in my head. I got to explain.
And blocking my sunlight.
I'll block your fucking sunlight.
But also,
I move.
He raises a good point. What about the harp in the third place? Second place. The harp, yes. Nothing. We're devolving into Sondheim jokes now.
Oh God, here we go.
I'll get us back on track. So
famous last words.
We've got kind of the general situation. For the most part, people are just clueless, and I just kind of have to grit my teeth and remind myself that they're all individuals and they all have things going on in their day. And just because I see it, 103 times in a row in a day, they are only one instance at them. And I can't really be mad at them as an individual for doing like dumb, thoughtless things, like leaning all over my counter and into my face and I know I keep saying it. I swear I'm going to stop next month because I won't be dealing with it anymore. But moving on to specifics where I do feel justified, like, actually, no, there is a line, and you have, in fact, just crossed it. This is now abuse, and I'm not dealing with it. Unfortunately, most of the time when that happens, I actually do deal with it, partially because I am just, like, so deer in the headlights, because I just can't believe... It goes back to that, I just don't understand how anyone could think that this is appropriate behavior to enact upon a total stranger. I'm gonna pull my earbuds out of my head with how taken aback I am. But most of the time, I do just kind of stand there and take it and, just repeat my line of, I'm sorry, masks are required to be in the store, though, so...
Yeah,
and I don't say it rudely. I don't say it smugly. I keep a very even face. Again, I have no idea what their day's been like. I did actually have a customer, like 2 years ago, who she was like, she got acting like a little crazy. Like, she was banging on the door when we had already locked up for the evening, and calling on the phone and leaving like crazy messages. And she actually like drove up in her car as me and my coworker were walking out to our cars, and like was desperately trying to get us to let her inside to get her stuff. We did find out later, because she actually came back and apologized at a later date and told us, what was kind of going on with her. Like, her boyfriend had just broken up with her.
God.
I think maybe her mother was ill. Like, a whole lot of it was a shitty day, and like, she just needed to pick up her one thing. Please, this is all I have right now. Just let me do the one thing. So even though she scared the shit out of me, and I was really freaked out, first of all, I appreciate that she came back and apologized. I do have.
I've actually got to give her mad respect for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is something that we don't do well.
There was another guy who actually called, I think maybe like a few days to a week after it had happened. Like, I had told him, if you don't have a mask, that's okay. I can come bring your stuff out to you. He misheard me and like went back to his car to go and get it, and I brought it out to him, and he yelled back at me like, well, you told me to go get a mask, so I'm going to get a mask. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was going to bring it to you. It's fine. Here you go. But he called.
I think part of that is also what he was expecting to hear, and he just overwrote that over whatever you said.
Yeah, I don't know, but whatever it was, he had a bad moment, and he called a few days to a week later and left a voicemail, and he said, I just want to apologize. I hope I didn't scare the person who was working, and I behaved kind of badly. He didn't say like, I hope you'll forgive me, but like, he was apologizing in a way that, it felt like he wasn't trying to unburden himself. It sounded like he was trying to do it because it's what he felt was the right thing to do. Yep. I did actually eventually call him back, and I left him a message and said, sorry, it's taken me a little while to get back to you. I hope you're doing well and you're staying safe. I totally understand. I really do appreciate you calling and saying that. It's kind of a welcome difference from most of the interactions that I have nowadays. So thank you. I appreciate you. I don't think I've ever heard back from him, or I don't know if he's ever been back since, but I still do hope that. I hope that he's doing well and that he is staying safe. If you don't have any tag along thoughts with that before I get into this past week's specific stories, the ones that make me think I'm not going to make it the rest of the month, before just saying, yeah, no, I'm not coming in during the week. I'm not doing it. I won't do it. I wanted to scroll through a chat. I'm going to go back up here a little ways, but if you've got any thoughts to tack on there, please share.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, Hans and I have been going back and forth along with Lord Starhawk, so
Yeah, no, I've been seeing you guys chatted up in there. Let's see here. Yeah, Iowa, Nebraska, we do have a lot of like agricultural production type settings where there just isn't a whole lot of good air circulation, or because of like the hot and heavy work, like wearing masks is
it's
maybe
fucking
not
brutal.
Yeah, it's brutal, and sometimes it's just flat out impossible. You can't really do it.
I just think of years ago, I worked at the steel mill at Becton Dickinson in Columbus, where we made the tubing that would become hypodermic needles. And it was amazing, intense work. And I don't think I've ever been in that good a shape in my life. But on the other hand, one of the key elements is that you were always around ovens that were burning at about 700 to 800 degrees, et cetera, et cetera. So working in that environment was constantly hot. It was always humid. It was always brutal. So wearing a mask in that, look, I empathize. I'd still do it.
Yeah.
Because
go ahead.
But trying to work in that environment with a massive respiratory infection would be fucking miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously there are certain cases where, for like legitimate reasons, people have a hard time breathing anyway, and that's going to impede that process. That's okay, because the majority of us who do not have that problem should be doing the thing, so that not only can we protect ourselves, but lessen the risk for those people who can't take the same precautions we can. It's a group effort kind of thing,
Yeah, we've all got to work together as a team.
Team effort.
Yes.
On the would you say Omaha is veering toward more conservative? That was a question put forward from Han. Generally speaking, like I said, we are called a blue bubble, and it's not inaccurate. Especially the more downtown you get, the more further east, the more folks who kind of skew progressive are going to heighten. And the further west you get, it tends to, at the very least, become more fiscally conservative and socially progressive. And kind of scattered throughout are people who are definitely like hardcore conservatives, lifelong Republicans, and self-proclaimed MAGA heads.
Yeah, I still
for the most
chuckle
part, like we feel pretty neoliberal up in here.
I still chuckle over the idea that I was at a gas station on 76th and Cass Street, which is midtown here in Nebraska or in Omaha, and I had somebody who literally called me a fag for wearing a mask. I'm just sitting there like, seriously, the fuck is your problem?
I would like to see, where is your work? Can you show me your work on this problem? Because this does not compute in any way, shape, or form. Also, not your word. Go away.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there looking at this person like, okay,
again,
look. Look, I'm not saying that I'm going to sit there and torture you if you turn up in my ER, but I am saying that, I might get a chuckle if you turn up there.
I'm going to give you the itchiest pillowcase.
Oh, trust. There are moments when you sit there and think.
Or at the very least, think about it.
List of things that you think about. You won't do it, but you do consider. I know a whole lot of ways to ruin your fucking day, pal. How about you dial it back a little bit?
Just a wee notch.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Stuff about Muppets. Stuff about Muppets. Let's
Muppets!
see. Yes,
Muppet
yes.
arms!
I almost knocked over my keyboard. Yes, wearing double masks now in the UK. I have recently started doing that partially because some of my like on the regular masks have shrunk a bit in the wash, and so they don't quite conform to my face the same way. So I just do the two, and it's also there is starting to be more evidence that well, I mean, it makes sense, you know, if you've got more layers of cloth, then you are going to have a few more layers against things getting through that. Not to say that you should wear like 5 just to be sure. Don't do that.
Yeah.
That would just be a waste of masks, probably. I think the best thing most folks can do, for the most part, is just unfortunately limit how much you're in public in general. Like it sucks, and it's making all of us incredibly batty and lonely, and that is not healthy for
No
us
shit.
as individuals or as a society. But until we get it a little more under control, which right now it is not, whether or not it's terribly bad in places like Omaha, comparatively at least, I would say, like, because of what the virus does, and also just how easily it is spread, that in and of itself is a problem. So even though we are not hit as hard comparatively with larger cities, it's still concerning. But at the very least, when you do go out in public, if you can't wear you know, something super well conforming to your face, then in that case you could wear 2 masks just to like make up for you can do what you can. And I gotta say, for the most part, the guys in net gaiters, I'm not gonna like throw a big hard dig on you, but not enough. It's not gonna do anything except cut the wind from, you know, striking you in the chin, and that's about all it does. I don't know what else to tell you. So, you know, just do what you can, make an effort at least, and also don't go up to anybody that you don't know and get in their face and wave your hands in their face. Again, even in not a pandemic, that's just don't do that. It's rude, and also they may be a supervillain and they may punch you in the snock box.
Just saying that the person who I'm just sitting there thinking, you know, I have literally trained SWAT teams in hand-to-hand combat. Go ahead, keep calling me a fag. Let's see if that works out for you.
And once he is taken to the ground, sir, quit being homophobic.
Yeah, if you're going to sit around,
to say.
Look, if you're going to insult me, feel free to talk about mix or my size or anything else. I totally get that. But throwing out things on people's sexuality, look, all you're just pointing out is that you have not grown up. And
I'm sorry.
it says a lot about you when you use that particular insult. That's all I'm saying.
I've seen something about Snuffleupagus now. It's probably in with the Muppet conversation. I think I've hit most of the things that I was pinning on. So
yep,
go ahead.
Keep looking. I'm going to go hit the restroom real quick because, well, I have gone through a 6-pack since 1 o'clock and hydraulic pressure builds. I'll be right back.
It's called physics.
Funny how
and
that works.
Biology. It's multiple kinds of science. Ha. Nice catch, Han. Yes, red flags. It was clearly a reference to my communistic tendencies.
Communism was just a red herring.
How dare you? Communism is just a red herring. What's something I can throw at you? Bring me cotton balls. Oh no, he has.
An ice cube bag.
No, that ice cube is like this big. It's as big as my kneecap. It's as big as my kneecap. What else is here? Learning juice. Yes, the very, very schmancy pre-broken keyboard. I really like it. It has a lot of different options for the height that it can be on and the angle that it can be at. And the cord that connects the two halves is long enough that if you're like really crazy, you could lay it on either side of your lap and be like laying back and like that. But there's no delay on the thing, and it actually has like the mechanical action to it. It's not like the soft key. I very much prefer the mechanical over the soft key. I am all out of what I had earlier. Now I'm just drinking the even more non-alcoholic thing than what I had before. What I had before was this plus a little bit of white rum, because we were talking about Lord of the Flies, and I wanted to have a semi-tropical drink. Sorry,
Rum agrico?
the
That's
rum.
different from white rum.
Well, it's white rum, isn't it? The
Rum
rum.
agrico is different from just white rum. It's
But it
two
says
different things.
but it says white rum on there.
Yes, but when you say white rum, most people just think like white rum.
Okay, okay.
Rum agrico is completely different.
Sorry. We'll do an entire segment next week on the popcorn takeover. Every other week we do popcorn and supervillainy instead of prosperity and supervillainy. Next week we will talk about the intricacies of what was it? Agrico? Agricole.
There we go.
I assumed it had something to do with agriculture. Agricole rum. We will discuss the. Now I'm back to the spot where Han was talking about bodice rippers, and I think I'm relatively caught up, and just in time because Gabe is back. So, if you are amenable to it, I would like to say the specific instances this week that just have perfectly encapsulated. I know I say that things are not on spectrums most of the time, but in this case, it was a spectrum. The crazy unhinged spectrum, and then the, oh my god, that was totally unexpected, and you're like completely awesome. Come back anytime. Spectrum. Yes. End of the spectrum. So there were a handful of the usual brand of incidents. You know, when people come in without a mask, you know, I'd very kindly say, "Hi, do you happen to have a mask with you today?" And most of the time, people will go, "Oh shoot, I forgot it in the car." And then they go away, and I say, "Don't worry, I'll be here when you get back." And I try to, you know, like I don't want to shame them. I don't want them to feel bad about it. It's fine. Because once again, we all forget. Every now and again. It's fine. We're all just doing our best. It's a strange new world. And then other times, people will go, "Oh, I forgot it in the car. Do you want me to go get it?" I'm like, "Else are required to be in the store, so yes, please. I'll be here when you get back."
Yep. And
they kind of like begrudgingly go get it. Like, I don't know if it's just that they feel put on the spot, or if they're actually asking like, "But can you just make an exception for me so I don't have to walk back out there?" Come on. I can't quite tell where it is, and it probably runs the gamut as well for there. And then there are the people who actively resist it and say, "Well, you know, it's not that big a deal. I have already had COVID," or
yeah.
So that was one of the bad ones this week. In one day, I had 3 really bad instances. Most of the 2 of them were people like pressing me on whether or not they needed one, or, you know, they said, "Well, I'm only going to be in here for a minute," and me, you know, again responding like, "Well, masks are required to be in the store, so you need to go get one." And basically throwing a fit and storming out, and after yelling at me a little bit, and, you know, occasionally saying things like, "All this for a hoax," or "This is fucking ridiculous." That's my favorite one. "This is ridiculous. Ma'am, madam, you don't know what ridiculous is. Keep going, and we will find out."
Yeah.
Once again, I would never, ever, ever engage a customer on this level. I won't do it. I won't do it. It will serve no purpose. It will not help them. It will not help me. In fact, it will just make me more upset. And in all not to be paranoid or anything, but just generally speaking, it's probably a good idea to not engage people because there is the possibility of them becoming extra unhinged and not just verbally abusing me, but physically harming me. So we're going to try and avoid that. So after 2 of the just like absolute big giant yelling fits, but like at the door kind of instances, I then had somebody who, you know, seemed like she was on something. I don't think she was. I think she just has a very strong, aggressive personality, but she was talking a mile a minute really hard and aggressively. And she had some more things to bring in. Apparently, she was also picking something up as well. And, you know, I began like I always do. She wasn't wearing a mask. Hi, do you happen to have a mask with you today? And she launched into this, oh, well, I've already had COVID, so, you know, I can't pass it on anymore. You're going to be fine kind of thing. And like she was, you know, like letting me in on a secret. Like that was kind of her attitude. Like, don't worry, we're cool. And I was going to go, yeah, awesome. Actually, I'm sorry, but I've had the vaccine. You don't know that, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. I have immunocompromised people who work in the store, and my immune system is not great to begin with. Even if I have had the vaccine, it doesn't mean that, you know, there is 0 chance of me contracting this particular virus. In any case, it doesn't matter. Masks are required to be in the store. It doesn't matter that, you know, there is little to no evidence to show that people who have contracted COVID cannot pass it along again. There is little to no evidence to support that as of this moment. And even if there was not, this is a private business, and it's, you know, the business's prerogative to require whatever they feel is appropriate of their customers and of their associates. It's a private business. You love capitalism so much, you fucking abide by it.
Yeah.
And again, she kept kind of pushing, like, well, you don't understand. I've already had it. I'm not going to go cough in somebody's mouth or anything. I'm like, that's not the point. I didn't say that's not the point. I'm like, still, masks are required to be in the store. And then she started, I did bring up, after like the 3rd or 4th time, she said, I can't give it to you, I can't give it to you, I can't give it to you. I said, it's the same for everybody who comes in the store. There's a reason for that. There's a mask mandate in the city. It doesn't expire until the 23rd of this month. And also, we have immunocompromised people who work in the store. And so it's the same across the board for everybody, for a reason. I'm not just saying this arbitrarily. And I distilled all that down basically into, we have immunocompromised people and it's the store policy. I'm sorry, this is the end of this conversation, basically. And then she launched into this 5-minute just leaning into my face, waving her hands around in my face, where I suddenly became the deer in the headlights again, and you know, just took the abuse because I don't know what to do in that moment. I know what to do after the fact, and I know what to do before the fact. It's all very clear and logical, and then it happens. Like, I don't understand how this is actually happening. Help. And she railed at me and just yelled and berated me for 5 minutes straight, and talked about how they're battling this out at City Hall right now, which she was referring to was the fact that Omaha, Douglas County has this mask mandate in place, and they were hearing comments from medical experts from UNMC and from elsewhere, as well as hearing feedback from the public, both proponents of extending the mask mandate and also opponents to extending it. And I wasn't aware of that when she started talking to me. So when she started going like, they're battling this out at City Hall right now, I thought she was being metaphorical. like, you know, just like in general, we're battling for the soul of the country. Um, and she just kept saying it. They're battling out. You don't have a legal leg to stand on. You don't have a legal leg to stand on. It's the store policy.
Welcome to
And
the joy that is capitalism. I can sit here and say this is a private area, and the result is
see, the funny
we
thing
get
is,
to make our rules.
the funny thing is that she was actually leaning on the capitalism side of things. She's like, I have things to drop off. You're telling me, like, she stood back on it. You're telling me that you're not going to take my money. You're standing there and telling me you're not going to take my money because I won't wear a mask in the store. I'm like, masks are required to be in the store. I'm not going to engage you. I'm not saying yes or no. Masks are required to be in the store. And she eventually finally threw up her hands and just said, like, look, there has to be signage up somewhere. You need to, if you expect people to wear a mask in here, you need to have signage up. I'm like, there's signage on the door and over here on the side of my desk. Masks are required to be in the store. And also, I know you've been in here twice in the last 2 months. Once was before the attempted coup on January 6th, and the other time was before, just before the election, I believe. And I didn't realize who she was at first. She actually did have something to pick up, and so I called her. She had gone out and she was sitting in her car, I assume either like ranting on Facebook or just fuming silently to herself. Or either that, or I actually did tell her, I'm like, if you have any further comments, you may email the owner at blah, 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 blah. Because I cannot help you anymore from this point out. And so I realized who she was because I think she had left a claim ticket behind. And I found her stuff and I called her and I said, hey, I actually have your stuff here. I can bring it out to you. Basically just acting like, you know, the whole incident had not just happened and that I wasn't like having a panic attack. It's fine. I'm not terrified that you're going to like grab me by the hair and bash my head into the counter. It's fine. I'm only like slightly exaggerating. I was a little afraid for my personal safety, just a little bit. For the most part, I was like, it's gonna be fine. But a little itty bitty part of me was like, so I did bring her, and she responded to me kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll come and pick it up. Like she had just forgotten it.
Yep.
And she had said as she was leaving that first time, like, you shouldn't be put into this position. I'm like, you're right, I shouldn't. Don't put me here. And I shouldn't be taking this out on you. You're right, you shouldn't. Don't take it out on me.
Yeah, no shit. Funny how that works.
And so she came back up to the door. You know, I handed her stuff and said, you know, you there's no balance or anything, so you're good to go. Please just leave. Please just leave. Please just leave. And she like seemed like she was gonna calm down and like semi apologize for again putting me in that situation and taking it out on me. And then she just ramped right back up again. They're fighting it out in City Hall. They're fighting it out in City Hall. You see this? You see this right there? Gesturing to her unmasked speak. This is freedom of speech. This is freedom of speech, okay? This is the United States of America. This is not the United States of whatever. Like, I don't know if she was just like so mad or so disjointed from her argument that she couldn't think of any particular like authoritarian, there we go, that's the word, authoritarian countries that she or regimes that she wanted to particularly reference. Like, do you want some help here? Like, what, it's not the United States of Soviet Russia? I mean, that's a classic. Just go with that.
Stick with that. Work with it. Yeah, you know.
And then and again, she kept going, you don't have a legal leg to stand on. You don't have a legal leg to stand on. They're battling it out at City Hall. Okay, shutting the door now. Bye bye. And I handled it as best as I could, and I was still very like, can't. What does anything? What? How do? For the rest of the day, and clearly I'm still in it a little bit, especially reliving it just there. But I'm going to take a moment. If you have any thoughts, share them, and then I'm actually going to like bring it back to the nice part of the sandwich with something that had actually happened earlier that day. Story-wise, it would have been better for it to happen after that lady, but unfortunately she was there right before close, and the nice story was earlier in the day.
Yeah, the issue usually is somebody who is like midway through becoming relatively reasonable, then realizing that they're missing out on an opportunity to vent all of their rather unfortunate, horrible shit on somebody who is beneath them. And result is they'll be halfway through getting reasonable, and then the next thing you know, they're like, no, wait a minute, there was something else that happened earlier in my day that you now have to suffer for. Yeah.
No.
My worst moment is something that involves it's very work specific, but long story short is we have carts, and these carts are about 5 feet long and about 3.5 feet tall, and they contain everything that you need to basically perform a standard vaginal live birth. If it's a C-section, they just move you straight over to OR. And every time that somebody has a vaginal live birth, long story short, we have to restock that damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
And every time that that happens, that's about 5 minutes out of your day and X amount of material, et cetera, et cetera. The best way I have to describe it is that there is a technician on L&D whose favorite pastime is at 8 o'clock in the evening, an hour and a half before I have to close up for the day. And this is my retail element here because I have to keep these people happy.
Mm-hmm.
We'll sit there and go, hey, you know what? I know that I'm going to have about 8 rooms that are going to have live births going on. So I'm just going to have you restock all of those carts right fucking now. Literally going into rooms where there are still active procedures going on and pulling the shit out, having me restock it, and then having me restock it again. This creates 2 major issues. One is she never tells me that she's going to do this. So I wind up with like 70 of these things, and I'm getting closer to the end of my day. Not only do I now have to restock these carts, I have to restock an entire room as a result of this. And it's remarkably irritating. And every time that I complain to her, she looks at me and goes, well, you see, that is part of your job. Yes. And informing me that you are going to do this is a part of yours. So if you could tell me that you are now about to make my day infinitely more complicated right at the tail end, that would be awesome, because then I could be prepared for it. If you don't do that, then I'm just going to sit here and go, you know, a little bit later on in the day, if I can make your life a little bit more complicated, fuck you, I will. And by a little bit later on in the day, I mean a little bit later on any time in the next month.
Because I like to think that I would forget this by the time the day has passed. But probably not.
No, I'll be sitting around thinking,
this is going to gnaw at me for at least several weeks.
I'm going to sit here and go, wow, you could have made my life a lot easier, but you didn't.
Well, not even like, you don't even have to go out of your way to make my life easy. Just don't make it harder because you don't want to do something.
Yeah, lower my level of difficulty. Giving me a
like,
phone call.
Both of our jobs could suck. Let's make each other's jobs suck less.
Yes.
And then we can like constantly be helping each other out. Like this wonderful, beautiful cycle.
And the fact that it's only one person out of the entire L&D staff who does this to me. And the L&D staff is about 50 or 60 people deep. So long story short, if you're the one person, congratulations, to borrow a phrase from one of my favorite TV characters ever, Raylan Givens in Justified, you're the asshole. But long story short, if you had 45 minutes to the end of my day that I could have been spent doing other things that needed to be done, later on, if you send me a thing saying, hey, could you make my life easier? No. Sorry. There are 3 other departments who treated me way better than you did, so no. deal with it.
Well, and a lot of the time, that thought process, I think, isn't even necessarily conscious. Like, it's just kind of the general state of things. Like, yeah, the people who are like not even, being overly nice or anything, just like generally pleasant, trying to go about their day, understand that you've got to go about your day as well. Most of the time we feel kind of naturally inclined, at least folks like you and I do. I know not everybody has the same type of mindset, and that's fine. Most of the time, like, we're automatically inclined to, like, hey, you know what, I actually do want, I want to help you out. I'm happy that you're out here, just being generally nice, and trying to help out where you can, and you're being appreciative of the fact that I've got my own stuff going on. I want to go out of my way to help you and turn your day from an okay day to a good day, or your good day to a great day. And then the people who are being butt faces, they're like, I will do the bare minimum that is required, and I will not go out of my way to hurt you necessarily. I'm not going to go out of my way to help you.
There are a ton of people who I work with, and there's an interesting inverse relationship law that I deal with in terms of the people who are complete pains in the ass versus the people who are usually pretty easy to deal with. The doctors, by and large, are remarkably easy to deal with. They show up, they do their shit, and by and large, I have great relationships with them. And then there are some people who work in the CNA and or tech department whose favorite pastime is just being a pain in the ass, because they are also the people who are on the bottom end of a totem pole. And end result is there are a few of them whose favorite pastime is going, I'm going to inflict the day that I've had upon you. No, I'm the one who supplies everything that you need. Long story short, if I sit around and decide you're not going to do anything, I could quite literally decide you're not going to do anything. So we can work together as a team, or you can go fuck yourself.
Well, and these are just like the automatic thought processes. I would say, if I had to venture to guess, I think you've probably done this too. There have been a number of times where people have not quite been being abusive, but just definitely still being inappropriate in how they're treating me as someone who is a stranger. And I have actually put a little bit of extra effort in to be, let's not nice necessarily, but like, I want to give you an open space to change your attitude.
Yes.
I want to give you a moment to think about the way that you're behaving, the way that you're treating another person, and I'm not just going to automatically give you what you want and push you out the door as fast as possible. I try to, it's difficult to describe. It feels like I can maybe kind of pick up on like who's having a bad day and who is like, they just act like this all the time. Now, of course, I don't know that for certain. We know nothing for certain here. Mm-hmm. But in those instances, there have been times where people have kind of turned it around. They will actually say, like, they'll be storming out to leave, but then they'll turn back and they'll say to me, I know that none of this is actually anything to do with you, and I'm sorry that I kind of took it out on you. That's not your fault. You're not in charge of how things are run, and I understand that you're just trying to help me. So thank you for trying to help me. I'm sorry that I got angry. I'm still gonna go write a really shitty review, but I'm sorry that I was shitty to you.
There are times
and that's fine.
There are times when I'm in the middle of trying to handle some particular situation, whether it's me as a customer, or I've had this happen occasionally with people who are dealing with me. And I'm like, look, I've been having a crap day, so if I'm being a pain in the ass to you, you can feel free to tell me, because I might not be aware of it. And, Because I figure, look, I've been studying judo now for decades, but there's an axiom in judo that says, together you and I shine brightly. You are nothing without your opponent.
Mm.
The person that this person is not necessarily your opponent. You two are working to create a moment together. It's like improv acting. And when I'm sitting there and I'm dealing with another person and I know that I'm having a crap day and I realize my temper is probably getting the better of me, I'll just point out, I'll just literally stop and go, look, if I'm being a dick to you, I'm really fucking sorry. And I'm not saying that to be sarcastic. I'm saying, look, I'm having a shit day. And if I'm taking out my shit day on you, you can feel free to tell me. I won't bitch about it. I won't tell your boss. I won't make your life miserable for it. I just need to be aware that if I have overstepped a social line, you can tell me. I don't use those exact words, but pretty much set that moment where I can sit there and go, we're both having days. So how about we both try to get through this thing together? And if I'm pushing the edge of that, you can let me know. I'm cool. I get it. And I think, one of the things that we as a society do is that we don't spend time monitoring our emotional state, where we are.
It does kind of seem like just extreme emotions like sneak up on a lot of folks. And I don't know whether that's just because we are in general ignoring our emotional states and the fluctuations of them. I know that mindfulness is very much a hot word right now, but I mean, there's absolute value in the practice of mindfulness. If it's not meant to necessarily stop you from having the bad emotions or the emotions that make you feel like you're going to die. It's there so that you can recognize what sets it off, and you can choose at that point where you want to go from, rather than letting everything explode and you taking your shit day out on some poor restaurant worker.
Oh God, if I do that anywhere in your presence, feel free to find a chair and fucking hit me with it. Like flat out, I am totally good with that idea.
It's not gonna. It's gonna get WWE up in here. It's Bernie with the steel chair. I know the meme is dead now, but like the wrestling burning memes,
yes,
were my favorite ones. There were some good ones that were floating around out there. My mom kept sending me a few of them, and like they started out cute, and then they got kind of fucking dark. Yeah. I'm like, what's that?
I'm gonna subscribe to the WWE network just so I can make you watch the Attitude Era again.
I mean, I'm cool with that. I'll watch the wrestlings. I'll do it. It was not something that I really got to grow up with, but I'm down with it.
Still the most enjoyable moment I've had maybe watching television ever, and you can pass this along to Move.
Your suggestion.
Is the moment where Mick Foley / Mankind won the WWE Championship for the first time. We all viewed ourselves in a way as being kind of like Mick Foley / Mankind. We were hardworking, we were getting our shit done and all that. And when he finally won the championship, we literally jumped out of our fucking chairs for it. It was awesome. It was kind of like a wonderfully self-promoting moment.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
Well, I'm gonna loop it back around here to the nice thing that would have been better story material if you had come in afterward. Gosh.
Yeah.
But it was actually after the first two bad incidents of the day and before the final shitty incident that I just described. An older gentleman, I learned through our short time together that he was 83. And usually that we the front of our store is clear glass windows, so I can see out into the parking lot. I can tell there. You will often hear when there are no customers in, one of us will go incoming, and then I'll go, no, I was working. Now I have to go help people. No. But
I don't want to help people. I want to work on stuff. Fuck you.
Like a little bit, yeah. Like I don't mind helping people, but also they get in the way of work. It's part of the whole thing. It's part of the whole thing. So I saw this old man kind of coming along from his car. He, unlike most people, who just decide to stop by and park in the space that is clearly for large semis to turn around in, and I'm like, it's fine if your truck, if your car gets hit by someone zooming through here or by a big semi being unable to stop. I don't know what to tell you. But he actually parked far away, and with his little like 4-post walker, like the cane with like a big flat base at the bottom with 4 little prongs coming out, or 4 little legs. I don't know what to call them. Just very slowly making his way. He's coming. He's coming. It's gonna be a little bit. So I actually went back and forth and did a couple of things, but I made sure that I was nearby the door by the time he was going to step up onto the sidewalk, so that I could open the door for him. And I would do that for anybody with limited mobility, whether it's because they're on crutches or they've got a cane or they're in a wheelchair. I've got several customers who are regulars who are in like what's electric wheelchairs with the little joystick. But I opened the door for him, and he very genuinely, very, very nicely, like not just standard, Midwestern exchange of pleasantries sort of thing, but just very nicely, genuinely thanked me for opening the door for him. And I don't know if it was just the way he said it or the words that he chose that I cannot remember specifically now, but for whatever reason, or maybe it was just the kind of day I was having, what he said made me feel very, very seen and appreciated. And I was like, you're welcome. You are welcome, sir. You're great. Get in here.
Yeah.
And and so it was like, I said, well, what can I help you with today? And well, get one moment. Let me sit down here. I sat down in one of the chairs by the door, and we figured out what he needed. It was a very small, simple thing that I could take care of in a few minutes. And he commented, I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but he commented on the way that I was walking. And he was basically referring to the fact that I was I was walking very quickly and like with purpose. And at first my brain went to the, oh no, am I going to have a kind of on the creepy side older man interaction today? I haven't had one of those in a while, where they tell me that flaunt what your mama gave you kind of comments. But like he said something else, and it was like, oh no, you're talking about like I'm moving very quickly and like from room to room, and you're kind of contrasting it with the fact that you're a little bit slower physically. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm walking with purpose. I got things to do. I'm on my feet all day. And we talked about a few different things, and somehow we got onto talking about family backgrounds, like ethnic background. And again, I had that little moment of trepidation, like, oh no, are we going to get into a thing again about how this particular country's people are better at this thing, and these people are more suited to this, and these ones are just trash, because I've had those too. But that's not where it went. He was just being, like, what now? What'd you do? They're always laughing at you, Dave.
Okay.
But so we kind of just were talking about, like different ethnicities, and I said, oh, I'm a European mutt. I'm a little bit of everything. I rattled everything off, mostly Irish, followed by French, Czech, German, Italian, but like so far north, Italian, basically Swiss or Swedish. I can never remember what's right there. I think it's Switzerland. That's north in north of, just north of Italy. Am I making that up? I don't know.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about how in his words, I was a thespian. We talked a little bit that, and just different kinds of art as I was bustling about doing what I needed to do for him. And then another person came in, another older gentleman. He was older than me, younger than our initial person. I'm going to call the second guy Barry. I don't know why. We're going to call him Barry. He was 63, we learned after a little bit more conversation, because Barry and the first guy, I'm calling him Frank, were kind of chatting together in that way that older guys sometimes do. And we got back, he kind of walked in on our conversation about ethnicities, and Barry said what his background was, and then he turned to Frank, and Frank was kind of on his way out, actually, because he was done with whatever we needed to do, and I was moving on to help Barry, and Barry turned to him as Frank was walking out the door and said, "Well, what's your nationality?" And 100% Polish. And Barry said, your people went through a lot in 1939. And I was like,
shit.
Again,
Yeah.
that small moment of trepidation, like this could go so many different ways. I hope this goes in a good way. But again, Frank is just like killing it. He read, yes, we did indeed. And these damn assholes now are spouting off all that same kind of Nazi stuff. They want to just kill everybody who's not like them. It's a damn shame. And he said like a couple things more in a kind of like old man sort of way, and the gist of it was, fuck these Nazis. And so I've been calling him "fuck these Nazis" Frank.
Yeah.
And yeah, after he finally left, I was just like, Frank, I mean, this stuff right here, I understand, it's everybody's responsible for their own actions. I know what I said. I was saying, like, sometimes people get caught up in this stuff and it's hard to get out of it. It's, like getting out of something like a white supremacist movement is a little bit like getting out of, a bad, not a bad group of kids, like a group of bullies at your school. Like once you get caught up in that life, it's hard to get out of it. We all are responsible for our own actions, and so are they. But this whole thing, that's actually a large part of what I would like to do with my thespianic work, is I want to tease out why people get in there, how they can get out of it, and what we can do in the meantime while they're still in it. And then I just kind of finish it off with like, and by the way, you come back anytime. You're great. I'm going to keep you. Come back anytime. And Barry and I had a few more words that, in just a generally nice, very good interaction with, like, I don't want to say like the only interactions that are good are people who like agree with me politically. I feel like "fuck these Nazis" should be a pretty universal point, but because I'm not going to justify fuck these Nazis. Fuck these Nazis. Frank is right. Take a note from Frank, children. Fuck these Nazis.
By and large, that is the best attitude to have. If you sit there, this is when I knew it was all going to go south in 2015, 2016. I have now made a hard and fast rule. It's been subconscious, but now it's very conscious of, if somebody is sitting around going, I need to build my power base by slamming a minority group, fuck you in the ear. I will hold your head down and literally fuck you in the ear.
It's going to be very, very uncomfortable.
look, there are certain things that I view as being completely and utterly beneath me, and it goes back and forth into the, I think it's rule 3 at this point. I am not going to nail a group of people for the behavior of one particular person.
Or
And I am,
even several members of a group, because
yeah,
there will always be exceptions to that rule. And like
yeah,
it just you can't totally distill people down to a few specific traits, which is
yeah,
why I'm starting to get away from describing almost anything as to do with people as a spectrum,
yes,
because whether you're speaking biologically or psychologically, um, it's not a spectrum, it's not a gradient, it's a fucking cloud graph. Okay.
yeah. And
There are
to me,
so many different points of data that make up who a person is. Again, everybody's responsible for their fucking actions, but to distill them down to just a few traits is unfair at best.
yeah. And I think that if you sit there and you view somebody's skin color, or you find out that they're part of a particular ethnic group, or they're part of a religion, look, I might, being a kid who grew up split between Protestants and Catholics, I learned very, very quickly that you don't make fun of a group simply because of a religious affiliation. I mean, okay, I will razz Mormons, but that's just that's me, and then I will own up and then go, that's just me being a dick. Mostly because sometimes you got to go for the easy joke. But then I will also own up and say that's me going for an easy joke, and you can totally give me a hard time about it. But
I'll think of a few easy
yeah,
jokes that I can throw at you in response if I ever have to
yeah,
uh,
because that's the problem. I think,
metaphorically throw something at the back of your head.
yeah, I think that that's part of the problem is that, and we discussed this last week and in the review, is there are people who grew up being able to make a quick, cheap joke about a particular group, whether it was anybody from a religious or ethnic group, or somebody with Down syndrome, or fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get told, hey, you can't do that anymore, but I want to laugh at the things I used to laugh at.
Well, and not just that, you also want to get the laugh.
Yeah.
I totally understand that. It feels good to be the person in the center of the room who says a thing, and then everybody reacts with laughter. That's an incredibly infectious feeling. Exhibit K and Exhibit D. We do stand-up and storytelling stuff when non-pandemic conditions allow.
Yeah.
For a reason. I mean, like it feels good to make people laugh, and if you've like always had that and it's always been a pretty, like this is your go-to thing, and like it's going to get it no matter what, and then suddenly someone says, even if they don't like jump down your throat about it, even if they're just like, actually that's a little gauche, maybe don't, then suddenly the shame response kicks in, and most of us, I think, immediately go into a little bit of a defensive mode, and like, well, it's not like I really meant anything mean by it. Jeez, just can't you take it? Every now and again, I think we have moments like, yeah, no, you're right. That wasn't great. I could do better.
Yeah, there are moments when I've had people who I'm actually going to point out, because I think that she's an excellent like reference point for when something is kind of past its due date. But we have a mutual friend named Lily, and Lily will from time to time point out, hey, you dropped that bomb in the wrong place. And I'll sit there and go, and I'll stop and think about it and go, yeah, you're probably right. But there are, I think part of the problem that we have, and I'm only going with my reference point as somebody from North America. We don't really spend a whole lot of time viewing the impact of what it is we say in the context of how we say it. And I think that is something that you have to open up and find the people who are wonderful, amazing filters for that. So I will pick on you and say you're great for that, and Lily is great for that, and my dear friend Erica is great for that. And those of us who grew up in a period where humor was a bit broader and a bit nastier and a bit meaner, sometimes you fucking need that.
I'm sorry. I'm still listening. It's just that Lily is in the chat, and
Yeah.
I'm like, literally, speak of the devil. I was just about to reference, Lily, a time. I think it was last summer. Lily and I have only known each other for about a year, thanks to this. Wait, no, this guy. There he is. Thanks to this guy. But it feels like
I am so grateful that I got all those
longer.
people in the room.
I don't remember. Well, maybe I do remember. I remember everything about it. I won't share the specifics of the situation that I was commenting on, but I said something that was kind of mean. It was mean 8th grader type of shit, and I
would love to throw that stone, but I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like, I had true maliciousness in my heart or anything. It was just kind of off the cuff. It was a dumb joke, and it was gross. It was gross. Not like icky, gross, vomity kind of gross, but gross like, ew, don't say that. Yeah. And I, in fact, was a little bit defensive at first, like, not in the, like, saying, like, well, you don't know what you're talking about, or anything like that. But, like, I had a couple of drinks at that point, and I was kind of like, well, I mean, it's just, I was trying to say, yeah, no, you're right. That was dumb. That was dumb, and I'm sorry. And that didn't feel great because Lily's and my friendship was still just kind of in its fledgling state. And I didn't want her to think badly of me, and I didn't want to know that and remember in days later that I had said a thing that was not super cool. But I did own up to it. It did not ruin our friendship, thankfully. And whether or not I made, the most eloquent or appropriate final response to that situation, I don't know. But she's still friends with me, as far as I know. I mean, she's here, but she could be just here for you.
Yeah. Somehow I doubt that, but I think the two of us in the same room.
So yeah, it's not like no one is immune from saying stupid shit, from making thoughtless comments, from making jokes that like don't really need to be made. Like not everything has. Yeah, not everything has to be, super deep, meaningful nuance for everything. Sometimes you just want to make dumb jokes, and sometimes just dumb jokes are fine, and other times they can stray into territory of like, but is that really helpful though?
Dumb jokes have their place,
in and of itself, like that the one isolated incident isn't necessarily the problem. It's when it keeps happening and it becomes a pattern of behavior, not just among individuals, but like amongst your friend group, your family group, all of your in-groups.
If my humor is based on sitting around and slamming people who are different than me, then clearly my humor is based around something that is by and large pretty negative. I mean, the human sense of humor is based around the idea that somebody is always on the sharp end of the joke. I get that. I am also acutely aware of the fact that that sharp end of the joke could apply to me every bit as much as it does to anyone else.
But that's that practical side of it. You got to remember.
Yeah, that's about emotional growth and also realizing a certain degree of self-realization when you realize, oh wait, my favorite pastime is tripping over fill in the blank. Um, but I think that one of the things you have to learn is sitting around and picking on somebody for a moment in time is one thing. There's
Mhm.
also a moment when you have to sit there and let that moment in time fucking go.
Yeah.
You cannot be defined by the thing that you did when you were 15, when you're 38. Hopefully, if you're still doing this thing that you were doing at 15 when you're 38,
Yeah.
then clearly you need that pointed out to you.
Mhm.
And a significant part of my life has been, I still view it as, I may have my issues with some elements of Robert Heinlein's writing, but one thing that I've always held on to is wisdom is based on the idea of unlearning the falsehoods you learned when you were a kid.
Not about
And
sums it up. Yeah.
yeah, and to me, I think that part of the thing that if you get smarter, part of getting smarter is realizing how fucking ignorant you were raised to be. And that changes the entire game right there.
Yeah. And sometimes there are things in the way that you were raised, and also just like in the environment around you, like let's say with your school and friends, um, things that didn't necessarily stick with you, but things that you saw, and whether you knew it or not at the time, you just kind of recoiled at a little bit, and now you can look back and go like, yeah, no, that wasn't great, and I'm glad that I never picked that up, because that's not the sort of person that I want to be. That's not how I want to treat other people, and I don't want that to be my life.
And to me, that's something that there are moments when I sit back and realize that there are things that I saw or behaviors that I saw when I was growing up that at the time I knew were inherently wrong, but because of the fact that you're growing up and you're trying to be part of you're trying to grow into a society and find an identity.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you follow the path of least resistance, which is to fall into the same sorts of prejudices and stupidity that are underlying current of how it is that we have humor.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, part of growing out of that and part of growing into a degree of maturity is sitting around and going, no, that was something that was learned, but does not have any inherent truth to it. So that is something that call it the benefit of age, at least if you put your age to a certain degree of use. But
Yeah.
be on the wrong end of the joke a few hundred times, and you realize, again, we're back to there's two different kinds of people in the world. But there's the group of people who fall in and follow the path of least resistance, and then there are the people who go, yeah, I was on the wrong end of it and it sucked, and I would really prefer that it not happen to me, and I really fucking hate it when it happens to people who are close to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I will accept a joke that's thrown at me way more than I will accept a joke that is thrown at my friends.
Well,
That's how it works.
and of course there are times and individuals who they are on the wrong end of the joke when all their life they were at the non-wrong end of the joke, the blunt side
Yes.
of the pointy stick, um which now I'm thinking about. No, I'll come back to that in a second. Put a shape over here with my fingers just so that I remember to mention it again. But people who don't have that kind of response when, like, oh shit, is this actually what it feels like to be at the pointy end of the stick? I
Ugh,
didn't think it would be like this. Well, I don't like this. Is this what I've been doing to people? I
this
don't want to do this.
sucks so much. Yeah.
But then there are other times where I'll just say we, as a group, humanity, sometimes we go, well, this doesn't feel great. I'm going to jab back at you even harder with my pointy stick. Um, that I know this seems kind of roundabout, but this does lead into kind of our final little section here, because we are at 2 hours now.
Yep.
So I figure we should probably wrap it up. And also, how do you
Editing this is going to be entertaining. Yeah.
I have, and that one is hungry
With or
too.
without you, getting food soon.
With or without me, he's getting food soon. So let us wrap it up. One of the
We don't want Jeremy being hungry. That's going to get ugly.
So how we've been kind of wrapping this up, I don't think we'll be able to keep this up forever, but for now, it's how we've been wrapping it up.
Yeah.
Each episode, old media that we have revisited during COVID. This may become a thing like every single week that I am guesting on Us Three Blokes, but this week it definitely applies as well.
At this rate, you're getting drafted into Us Three Blokes, just so you're aware.
I am the new bloke.
First round draft pick.
Maybe it should just be called Who's Those Blokes or something like that, because then it's like the number of blokes is no longer a thing in a bit. But we were talking about Lord of the Flies, the 1963 film, for Us Three Blokes this week, or whenever it actually will be edited and come out. We filmed today, and
It'll
without giving away
next week Saturday,
without giving away too much of the good, juicy, deep thoughts we all had. One of the ones that I came away with was that there is an idea of balance that has either always been elusive to humanity, or we have lost a little bit touch with it.
Always two there.
It's what?
Always two there.
Always
Master
two.
and
No, we're not talking about Star Wars. We're talking about Lord of the Flies. But how I don't know whether it's just that I'm watching it now in this day and age, but here is kind of my interpretation of the whole back and forth of Jack the Hunter and Ralph the Assemblyman, with the conch and rule and order, and Jack with his knife, and wild and excess. I will hunt and feast and have fun because I am a boy. I don't think that one is necessarily better than the other. What is it better to be? Is it better to be a pack of wild painted savages, or is it better to be civilized and proper? I don't think it's either necessarily. I think that both of those things are things that are in us, and we don't necessarily have to give in to each and every tendency, not give into every single urge, but we have to recognize that all of those things are there. And if we just say, this thing is bad, stop it, it's not necessarily helpful, because if we do stop it, there is still this space where those tendencies and urges exist. And if it's just kind of left there and left to its own devices, it can come out at any time, and it will probably come out in destructive, negative ways. So we didn't quite find a way into it, but maybe not next week, since next week is popcorn, but the following week. I do want to talk a little bit about a video from Angie Speaks, where the main focus of the video, she's talking about Jordan Peterson, but what she is focusing on is how kind of the emotional, the spiritual, the esoteric has sort of been left to the wayside, and capital T, capital L, the left, has sort of ignored it and put material needs of the people above those emotional and spiritual needs. And where those voids are, regardless of whether or not you are atheistic or theistic, whatever, it doesn't matter. There's culturally still, and kind of in the greater global consciousness of us all, there still is a little bit of that void, and we can fill that with different things. It doesn't necessarily have to be religion or spirituality at all, even, but it still exists. And if that is not being tended to, if those needs aren't being recognized and given priority, then those with, shall we say, less than wholesome intents can kind of creep in there and fill that space And that's where we get into things like white supremacist movements in the United States, the neo-Nazi movements, and the what am I thinking of? Proud Boys,
God, yeah.
where suddenly they're having their needs met by these other individuals, by these other movements, but they're being put toward negative, destructive ends. Things that they're being told will benefit them in the long run, but are actually kind of not only harming them but harming society at large. Anyway, that's what I want to talk about 2 weeks from now.
Okay, that's pretty hardcore.
What's an old piece of media that if there is a new one in this last week that you've been enjoying?
I went back, and because of the fact that I've introduced a friend of mine to the cult of Letterkenny, and it's been entertaining to watch them go all the way through that process that everyone else who is a part of it has joined in on. But previous to that, there was a show that was also shot in Canada that's on the Shudder network, which is a all horror network,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called Todd and the Book of Pure Evil, and basically the entire concept.
Todd and the Book of Pure Evil.
Oh, it is totally worth checking out. If you don't have Shudder, come on over. If you can't find it, come on over, get a mask, and I'll show it to you. It's a TV series about basically it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but instead of Buffy being a cheerleader, Buffy is now a 16-year-old metal stoner dude, and his team is made up of his best friend, and then there is a janitor who never leaves the school, who is played by Jason Mewes, a.k.a. Jay of Jay and Silent Bob fame, and it's a hyper gory high school comedy involving a book of kind of elder god insanity. And every episode it just gets weirder and a little bit stranger, and I love every second of this show. It has the greatest guidance counselor that has ever existed, Atticus Murphy.
Atticus. It's got to be a good character when their name is Atticus.
Oh yeah. So I highly recommend this show because it's a wonderful way to just sit there and go, I am going to mindlessly blow off steam for half an hour, and God damn it, I love every episode of it.
Sometimes we just need that, man. Todd and the Book of Pure Evil, is that what it was?
Yes, Todd and the Book of Pure Evil, totally worth checking out. Every episode, and I don't say this very often about TV shows, but every episode is well worth watching.
It's a series. Jeremy was telling me that I have in fact seen Todd and the Book of Pure Evil. Is there a film and a series?
There is a animated film that basically rounded out the end, because the series basically ended at episode season 2.
Yeah.
And then they created an animated film so that way they could at least wrap up the plot lines that ended at the end of the second season.
Okay. All good things. He was thinking of a different movie, but I think it's called John Dies at the End.
We've reviewed that on Us Three Blokes, and it's an amazing.
What is the actual title?
For the series that I was.
It is John Dies that. Ha! I remembered something for once.
John Dies at the End is a fucking amazing film, and I recommend everybody watch that too. It's incredible. It's a wonderfully squishy and elder god filled film. That's all I can
say. So we've got our old media that we have revisited in the time of COVID, but now also the new media. I for this week picked We Bare Bears on Cartoon Network. I before COVID had seen a few episodes like here and there, but I hadn't actually like gone through and watched the series. I did. There's only 2 seasons available on Hulu. We've watched all of them now. I don't know if the show is still continuing on. I hope so. It's really delightfully written. There are a whole lot of anime homage moments happening, specifically around food and cooking. One of the bears Ice Bear, who is polar bear, but he speaks in the third person and refers to himself as Ice Bear. He is like an amazing cook, and every time he will cook for him and his brothers, the others are a grizzly bear and a panda bear, Grizz and Pan, respectively. And he'll like individually make their meals like according to their tastes, very appropriate, and just like beautifully pictured, just like it would be in an anime. Like 30% of what's good about anime for me is the food shots, or even just like the cup of tea that is like the still shot except for the steam rising. One of my favorite anime tropes right there. But there's also a lot of really good kind of references to the city that they are set in, or that they're based in, which is like, I don't think they actually say San Francisco, but they do say the Bay Area a couple of times. Yeah, no, they show the Golden Gate Bridge. They are clearly in San Francisco.
Well, they could also, depending upon which side of the bay they're on, they could be in Oakland or Berkeley either. But okay, I get you.
That's fair. To be fair, they live like out in the woods. I want to know what woods do they technically live in? Because there are park rangers that they interact with.
The ones just south of
there is also
between LA and San Francisco, the wooded area.
You mentioned Waiting earlier, Dave.
Yes.
The main guy from that, Todd Lee, something Lee. He plays like Jason Lee.
Yep.
Jason. We all said it like 14 times.
The movie?
Isn't he?
The movie? No.
No.
It's Ryan Reynolds.
Is that Ryan? God damn it! I mix
Ryan Reynolds and Jason Lee.
I do. They have a similar voice.
No.
We'll argue about this later. We're getting to the end of the episode. In any case, Jason Lee, whatever movie he's in or not in, he plays this kind of Sasquatch character named Charlie, who lives out in the woods with them. He's kind of a fun like cameo addition to the cast, but also for anyone who watches Steven Universe, I'm trying to Charlene Yee. There, I couldn't remember. I know she spells Charlene a little bit differently than I tend to see it. She plays this little girl named Chloe Park, who her parents and her, they're Korean. Chloe is fully English speaking and everything. Another cameo, her mom is the woman who plays Lady Rainicorn and BMO on Adventure Time.
Yep.
And I know that I have heard her dad's voice somewhere. I want to say that he plays kind of a one-off character in the series Bee and Puppy Cat. So they're like all kinds of like good little voiceover cameos. But Charlene Yee plays Ruby in Steven Universe. And hearing her like as this tiny Korean girl, I'm not sure of Charlene's ethnic background. I think she's Korean. Is she Chinese? I'm not entirely sure. Mostly when I think of Charlene Yee, I just think of this one photo of her when she was like 13 or 14, and she was basically modeling cheese. She has it up on her Instagram, and it's the best fucking thing. Yes, no, she literally refers to herself as a cheese model, and I love Charlene. She's so kooky, and I love her.
That is my favorite term ever now.
We Bare Bears is a super fun show. It's well written, and it's got kind of a combination of like good goofy hijinks that has no bearing on any continuing arc. But then also there are these flashback episodes of the bears when they were little. And first of all, they have little children voicing them. So they're saying like very grown-up things, like very over, like melodramatic, but coming out of like a child's mouth is just hysterical. Ice Bear doesn't speak when he's a kiddo. He doesn't learn to talk until later on, I guess.
Okay.
But there are also a few episodes. I won't go into the tear-jerking details, but there are a few episodes that made me cry. Not as bad as Steven Universe, except for there's this one episode. There's this one episode where we get into Ice Bear's origins, where we learn a lot about where he came from and why he is the way he is. His little particular quirks and eccentricities. That made me cry pretty hard. I was alone at the time I was watching it, and shortly, I think it was like 1 or 2 episodes later, I said, you know, I'm actually going to stop this. I'm going to restart the series with Jay at home, because he needs to see this entire series. It's fantastic. So yes, that is my new thing. Next week, I don't have any questions prepped for this week. I don't know that I'm going to keep doing that. I haven't decided yet. But once again, for everybody who was able to drop in, whether you're still here or not, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us once again. I hope that this will continue to be a thing. This is our 4th week in a row now, our 3rd official episode, but 4th week in a row where even if we have started a little bit late because of technical difficulties, we don't have like 14 assistants to set all this stuff up for us, okay? We're doing it on our own. But it could continue to be a thing. We've only got, I know the whole like do it 21 or 23 times thing to make it a habit is not actually a thing, but let's just say, you know, once we get to 21 episodes, we'll really be in business then, won't we?
Oh, hell yeah.
Next week will be a popcorn episode, so even though we will inevitably, because it's me and Dave, get into some heavier subjects, some potentially touching on things that are current events. We will be talking a little bit lighter stuff to, you know, just give ourselves a break, give a breath. And if you have any things, anything in particular that you would be interested in having a discussion about on here, please feel free to leave a comment that says that. And then if you are on my Discord, or if you know Dave or I personally in the real world, you can just DM us and tell us those things. I hope you will join us again next week, and that you have an incredible weekend full of at least mostly good things, not very many bad things. And if it is full of bad things, please make sure that you take the time to do something that you absolutely love to do, or if it is useful for you, take the time to do absolutely nothing for like a good 30 to 90 minutes at least. Just do absolutely nothing, because it's okay to do nothing. You don't have to be productive. You don't have to do anything for anybody else. Just take a minute to do nothing. Dave, any final thoughts?
Hey, you know what? We're going to be heading into I'm sitting here. I don't know where anybody who's watching this is living, but here in Nebraska, we're going to be living in the coldest part of the year for the next week.
Yeah, it's going to suck.
It's not going to be a whole lot of fun. So, hey, when you're out and about, just keep in mind, the cold weather is not making any of us feel any better. So when you're interacting with people, especially the people at the retail end or whatever service end you're dealing with, keep that in mind. Treat everybody.
Bring it back.
Yeah, bring it all the way back to rule number 1. Treat people with kindness and respect.
And
I am
civility.
a villain. Yep, I am a villain, and I have plans of things I want to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I can't behave without a degree of class and decorum. So when you're
I
out
may be
and
a villain, but I'm not an asshole.
Right. As I keep saying, I'm not a villain. Monster is a whole different game. So, hey, just be aware, next week is not going to be easy on any of us. So treat everybody, just take that extra step, take a second, relax, and remind yourself that the other person is not a fucking object.
Yes. Retail workers are not an object in between what you want and, I don't know, oblivion. Just keep your distance, be nice.
And also keep in mind, especially when you're dealing with food service workers, Watch the first 10 minutes of waiting. And remember, if you treat somebody horribly, they can do that to you.
But not an asshole. So not the boys.
Jeremy
not
is asking a thing that he wants to put forward to you and
Yep.
whoever's listening. Would you just like to get on mic and ask the question?
No,
Because
okay.
So say the thing.
I'm looking for media.
Looking for a media
Where the hero is
Piece
the
of media.
antagonist.
The hero is the antagonist.
But not an asshole.
But he is not an asshole.
So not like Mastermind.
It's not Mastermind.
And not the boys.
It's not the boys.
So the hero is still a hero, but he is the antagonist of the story.
There is a
And you're not thinking of Megamind?
No.
Okay.
The hero's an asshole.
Okay, so the hero is an asshole in the movie.
No, the hero's not an asshole.
Oh.
The hero's still a hero, but he's the antagonist of the story. The
Okay.
story is told from
All
the
right.
villain's point
Okay.
of view.
So the story is told from the villain's point of
The villain
view.
is the protagonist. So
We're not
the
sure.
hero is trying to
We're not
block
sure
him.
if it's a movie, a book, or a
No, I'm
television
talking
show.
in general. It's not
Okay.
anything specific. I'm just
Okay.
looking for examples.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah, there we go. There is our question for next week's popcorn.
Okay.
Find examples of media, whether it is film, television, or literature, or performance art, whatever, where the protagonist of the story is what we would refer to as villain, and the antagonist of the story isn't an asshole like in Megamind.
He's the hero,
but
he's still a hero.
he's a hero, and he's what we would call the good guy. But in the case of this story, like in literary terms, in literary terms, he is the antagonist, or she,
Okay.
or the hero is the antagonist. The villain is the protagonist of the story. He's the villain. They are who we are meant to identify with and follow along with the story. So we will come back next week and have a few examples of that, because even though I can't think of any off the cuff where they haven't, maybe the hero is the real villain. I can think of plenty of those, but I know that there are examples of something that is as you just described. They must exist, and if they do not, why not? So
I was thinking Joker, but I haven't actually seen Joker yet. So
neither have I. I actually have no strong desire to see Joker. I'm sure I'll watch it someday. I just don't have a strong desire to see it. I think it's kind of like what's the Smash Mouth song that's at the beginning of Shrek that was
All-Star.
on every fucking God.
Somebody once
All-Star.
You.
was gonna roll me.
I hated that
the sharpest tool
song
in the
so
shed.
I hated that
You
song
was
so
looking
much,
kinda
and I
dumb
was.
with a finger and a
I'm
thumb
gonna
on
mute
the
you.
shape
Where's my
of
mute
an
button?
afternoon. Well,
I'm trying to
they
wrap
start
up so that
coming,
we
they
can
don't start
eat,
coming.
and you're not making it easy.
You started this shit.
This is what happens.
You've been putting fucking earworms in my head all day long and then bitching at me when I try to extract them, so I don't want to hear it.
Oh Lord, is there a reason that you don't have your own mic and are on screen with us?
We gotta throw him in the mix someday.
We gotta throw him in the mix someday.
I'll do my thing.
We're quickly devolving. Oh no, he's doing the thing. All right. Well, as my entire camera is engulfed by an enormous, but well maintained. Pandemic beard and mustache. It's both. It's the beard mustache of Ghost Mustache Patrick Swayze.
Oh shit.
On that note, as I am consumed and pulled away into a world of Smash Mouth and whatever we're having for dinner. Good night, everybody.
Dude, I was in
Doc,
high school and college in the
thank
90s.
you for
everywhere.
joining me again for this madness, and we'll do it again next week.
I look forward to it. Have a good night, everybody. Have a good week.
Daniel, by
Hope
the way,
everything treats you well.
I did see your comment up there. Thank you for joining us. You're in the group too.
Oh,
For
I love triangle
thank you.
movies.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.